So, there's a new Bethesda game coming out, Fallout 76. Although there's a lot of rumors circulating right now that Fallout 76 is not going to be a single-player RPG, but rather an online multiplayer survival game, more on that another time, that doesn't necessarily mean that the game won't contain all that juicy, awesome Fallout lore we've come to know and love over the years. Game genre aside, and assuming the new game won't be some kind of mobile-only vault-building microtransaction fest, let's talk about where and when Fallout 76 takes place in the overall Fallout universe timeline, and based on that information, what we might expect to see in-game. Let's start with Vault 76 itself. According to the Vault Tech terminal in the Citadel, Vault 76 is located somewhere in the Washington, D.C. area, likely on the outskirts of D.C. or the surrounding area, possibly as far as West Virginia. Vault 76 is one of the control vaults, meaning it was one of the few vaults in the Fallout universe that was not intentionally made a terrible place for the purposes of experimentation. If you're new to the Fallout gaming world, just know that Vault Tech, the company behind the creation of the vaults, did a lot of messed up stuff to the vast majority of people who ended up living in the vaults when the bombs dropped. You want an example? Sure you do. In Vault 69, Teehee, they decided to populate it with one man and 999 women. In Vault 68, they decided to populate it with one woman and 999 men. In Vault 77, they had only one guy and a gigantic crate filled with puppets. Vault Tech is messed up. Vault 76 was one of the very few normal vaults to exist in the world of Fallout. The Great War happened in-game in the year 2077, and according to the in-game lore, Vault 76 was supposed to only be closed for 20 years, opening up to the world in 2097. In the trailer for Fallout 76, though, we can pause and see that the in-game calendar states that the game kicks off on October 27th, 2102, 5 years after the vault was scheduled to open. That actually explains a lot of the trailer. All the footage that we see is of an extremely empty, likely abandoned vault. All the residents have probably ventured out into the wasteland by the year 2102. It's not really clear why one vault dweller would come back and reclaim a Pip-Boy, but it's pretty safe to bet that the inhabitants of the vault have stepped out since the doors opened, possibly to reclaim the waste or recolonize it, which is what I'm guessing Reclamation Day is, as seen on the poster inside of the empty vault. Wonder how that went. Since the game takes place in 2102, Fallout 76 is technically a prequel to every Fallout game we've ever been able to play so far. Check the timeline. The original Fallout takes place in 2161, Fallout Tactics in 2197, Fallout 2 takes place in 2241, Fallout 3 in 2277, Fallout New Vegas, best game ever, in 2281, and Fallout 4 in 2287. Fallout 76 takes place just 25 years after the world was reshaped by the Great War and almost 60 years before the events of the original Fallout. We're going to be getting a really early on look at what the wasteland was like after the war. So, with that in mind, I wanted to quickly touch on what factions and enemies we can expect to see and expect not to see in the game at this point in the timeline. The Brotherhood of Steel. Despite being one of the series' most popular factions, it's really likely that the Brotherhood of Steel is not going to be one of the groups you'll find in the Wastelands when playing Fallout 76. In the lore, the Brotherhood was founded out in California in 2077, the year the Great War took place, by a former captain in the US military named Roger Maxson. After the Great War was over, the Brotherhood slowly began to take shape out in the ruins of California, and the organization didn't really venture out much at all across the United States until years and years later. There were two notable excursions that did so. One was a group of Brotherhood members who, after the defeat of the Master, aka the primary antagonist in the original Fallout, were sent eastwards into the US in order to track down and assess the extent of the remaining super mutant threat. More on super mutants a bit later. While traveling eastward by airship, the Brotherhood travel party got caught up in a big storm, got separated from one another, and the majority of the survivors members crash-landed in the ruins of Chicago, where they would eventually come to form the Midwestern branch of the Brotherhood of Steel. Later, in the year 2254, the Brotherhood sent another large group out east under the leadership of a man named Owen Lyons. Their original mission was to find and make contact with the previously mentioned group, the Lost Midwestern Brotherhood chapter, who wound up in Chicago. This new expedition that set out never located the Lost Midwest chapter. They instead went too far east and wound up in a terrible, horrible, hell-on-earth place called Pittsburgh. I guess some things never change. I look forward to reading your emails. After having a massive battle with the inhabitants of Pittsburgh, known locally as the Pit, the Brotherhood continued pushing east and eventually arrived in Washington, D.C., where they decided to set up a permanent camp on the East Coast in order to deal with the rising threat of the super mutants that now inhabited the Capital Wasteland. Therefore, unless there's more traveling expeditions we don't know about, the Brotherhood of Steel doesn't reach the Capital Wasteland area until about 150 years after the date that Fallout 76 is supposed to take place. So it's extremely unlikely that there will be any Brotherhood members in any capacity in the newest installment of the game. The Enclave. If you're unfamiliar, the Enclave is a secretive, political/militaristic government organization that is descended directly from members of the pre-war United States government. Because they're direct descendants, the Enclave believe that they are, unquestionably, the rightful folks in charge of the post-war US. Right before the Great War, top-ranking members of the US government realized that nuclear war was imminent, so they retreated into secretive, fortified bunkers across the country. Their main squeeze headquarters, as it were, being the Poseidon oil rig located out in the Pacific Ocean. The US government's original secretive plan for surviving the impending nuclear war was, I'm not making this up, leaving Earth in a gigantic spaceship and finding another planet to live on. The US government, ladies and gentlemen, the Enclave eventually ditched their plan to leave the Earth and decided they would instead go with Plan B. Let's hide like chicken shits while the bombs drop, wait out the aftermath for several years, and then eventually take back the country, by force if need be, when the time is right. So, after the Great War, they waited in secret for years, and because of that, I don't think we're going to see or hear about them very much at all in all of Fallout 76. Most Enclave scouting parties started patrolling around in California after the events of Fallout 1, which again takes place well over 50 years after when Fallout 76 is supposed to begin. If there's any Enclave-related activity in Fallout 76, it might be tied to Raven Rock, a former US military base and fallout shelter located in the Capital Wasteland. It appears in Fallout 3. Even though there's very likely members of the Enclave hiding out there during the year that Fallout 76 takes place, I'd bet money on the fact that at this point in the timeline, the Enclave is collectively trying to keep a low profile, and we might not hear about them or see them at all. Super mutants. I'm hoping there's going to be a buttload of super mutants in Fallout 76, and I'm not just saying that because I think they're awesome, but because of the existence of a place in the Capital Wasteland called Vault 87. This is essentially the birthplace of super mutants on the East Coast and in the Capital Wasteland. As I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of shady shit that went down in all the Vault-Tec vaults. Vault 87? No exception. The inhabitants of the vault were being intentionally experimented on and exposed to the FEV, aka the Forced Evolutionary Virus, so that they could be documented on how humans would react to direct exposure. The original goal of the virus was to create better soldiers for the US military. Thanks, Uncle Sam. The results were pretty damn terrifying. You become gigantic and strong, but also dumb, green, and sterile. Eventually, surprise, surprise, these mutants broke free from captivity, overwhelmed the security in Vault 87, and started intentionally dipping their captors one by one into vats containing the FEV, and in turn turning them into super mutants. Why? Partly for payback, but also because these new mutants had become obsessed with the preservation of their newly created species. Remember I said super mutants can't reproduce any other way. play, what with being sterile and all. So, ever since then, the super mutants of Vault 87 began kidnapping humans all across the Capital Wasteland, dragging them back to the vault, and exposing them to the FEV to change them into super mutants. Apparently, that whole song and dance went on for about 200 years, so it's really likely that it's going to be a pretty rampant situation during the Fallout 76 time period. In short, if you see any big, green, shirtless dudes knocking on your vault door, maybe don't answer it. The Institute. The Institute is an advanced scientific organization dedicated to preserving and furthering pre-war science. They're well known for being the creators of synthetic humans, aka synths, and are one of the stronger factions in Fallout 4. The Institute was formed in the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, a university located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. During the Great War, several CIT personnel survived the nuclear fallout by taking refuge in the underground levels on campus, and in the year 2110, 33 years after the bombs dropped, the survivors and their descendants founded the Institute. Keeping all of that in mind, I don't think we're going to see any kind of activity from these folks in the new game. The Institute is officially founded 8 years after Fallout 76 is supposed to take place, not to mention in a different part of the country. So close, but yet no cigar. Deathclaws. Some of you might be thinking, whoa, wait a minute, how could there not be Deathclaws in Fallout 76? A Fallout game without Deathclaws? That's like Oreos without milk. Side note, if you eat Oreos without milk, please leave my channel immediately. It's not a joke. Please go. Are they gone yet? Okay, good. Even though there are a lot of critters in Fallout that are likely direct results of mutation from the nuclear war, Deathclaws are surprisingly not one of them. They were originally created before the Great War even happened by the US government as part of a plan to supplement human troops in battle. Fun drinking game if you're of age. Take a shot every time the US government in Fallout has a terrible f***ing idea. Deathclaws are essentially highly bastardized, genetically engineered Jackson's chameleons. You know, the lizards with the funny, googly eyes. Engineered with the DNA of other unknown animals, mixed in, of course. Jurassic Park style. Spared no expense. That's how Deathclaws first came about. Later in the Fallout timeline, the Master, in addition to all the other fun stuff he was doing out on the West Coast, decided to play God by exposing these government-created creatures to the forced evolutionary virus. The Deathclaws we're used to encountering in-game so far are the ones that were exposed to FEV. Unlike super mutants, for some reason, Deathclaws are still able to breed naturally in the wild, which I'm guessing is a terrifying sight. So it's possible there will be Deathclaws in Fallout 76 because you need them in the game, you know? But that being said, I'm not sure if they're going to look like the ones we've come to know over the years. The Master didn't begin exposing them to FEV until many years after Fallout 76 is supposed to take place, but in theory, the ones originally created by the government might still be around. Will they be less terrifying? Here's hoping we find out. Raiders, slavers, and savages. Oh, hell yeah, there's going to be a lot of them. That's probably going to be the vast majority of folks out in the wasteland wanting to do bad things to you. Always the chance there's going to be some new faction out there we haven't learned about yet, but yeah, human beings, we're the worst. Expect a lot of dirtbag people out there to do dirtbag things in your general direction, just like in real life. Do me a favor, will ya? If you like this video at all, please hit the like button. It'll help me figure out what type of content to make on the channel in the future. If you're hyped for Fallout 76 like I am, or if there's anything else about the Fallout universe you want me to go into, let me know down in the comment section. Also, please click the subscribe button because it's free and it helps me out a ton. If you're here for the regularly scheduled Destiny content, don't worry, that'll never go away. Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching. See you next time.